Welcome to the most scenic, snack-filled, and slightly chaotic trip I've taken in a while. Recently, Matthew and I went on a river cruise up the very iconic Rhine River. Over the course of 10 days, we found ourselves floating around 4 different countries, drinking a suspicious amount of coffee, and unlocking our European grandparent era. After a long flight and brief naps that didn't fix my jet lag, we landed in Basel, Switzerland, or at least I think we did. Because you see, this airport, technically in France, also serves Switzerland and Germany. So depending on which door you walk out of, you could end up in a completely different country. Luckily, we found the right door, so we made our way through the Swiss side, got in a car to head to our hotel. And the exciting part was that we had 2 days to explore Basel, Switzerland before we jumped on our cruise. Basel, Switzerland is a very historic city that feels like a postcard and a Wes Anderson movie. We wandered through the old town that's filled with cobblestone streets, some of the best Swiss chocolate that I've ever had, beautiful, historic, colorful buildings, and hidden fountains everywhere that I'm 95% sure are just casually drinkable. The architecture here is somehow both gothic and whimsically clean, which feels very Swiss to me. We also walked along the Rhine River, and this is where things got geographically confusing, because from some points you can actually see Germany and France across the water. So we just stood there jet lagged and full of chocolate, yelling bonjour and hello like true intellectuals. We even had time to explore ourselves, and we visited their so-called version of a food hall. It was in this really unique dome-shaped building, and there were so many different stands set up with all kinds of different food. So basically a place where you can get Mediterranean food and Asian food at the same time, and coffee. Sign me up. I know none of that actually goes together, but that's the great thing about a food hall. And when we arrived in Basel, we immediately went on a mission to find the best chocolate, and this train station had some really good spots. We found the chocolate that we needed, and I got this coffee, but it came in a to-go cup that is 3D printed, no plastic, so it kind of looks like a little ceramic mug, but it's actually a to-go cup, which is pretty cool. And this is our last day here in Basel, and one of the things that we wanted to get before we leave was their chocolate, because they are known for their chocolate because of their cows that they actually have here in the country. And as you can see, I was very fascinated with this to-go cup from this coffee shop. I thought it was so cool. So an interesting fact here in Switzerland is that the cows have to graze for a minimum of 20 days before they're milked, which is really interesting, and that's how they get such good milk from their cows. And that's why they're called happy cows. We also saw a really good chocolate shop that is in the train station. There's actually a lot of really cool places in the train station that you can get like snacks. There's a grocery store, chocolate shops, things like that. This chocolate shop is family run, and it looks so good, so I'm excited to check that out. After a couple of magical days in Basel, Switzerland, and one alarming moment when I realized how many Swiss chocolate receipts I had, it was time to take a coach and arrive to our cruise ship, which was basically our floating hotel for the next several days. Boarding felt like this exciting mix of checking into a boutique hotel and stepping onto a vessel that's about to take you to 4 different countries without ever repacking your suitcase. We're gonna get on the boat, and then we're gonna explore it and see where our room is. Honestly, I would say taking a cruise while traveling Europe is a 10 out of 10 life hack. But now it was time to get on the boat and see where our room is and explore. As we stepped onto the ship, we were immediately greeted with what I can only describe as peak river cruise energy. Calm vibes, classical music playing in the background, and tiny warm towels. Yes, they handed us tiny warm towels, and I don't know what it is about holding a steamed square of scented fabric, but I felt like I was transported to a fancy spa. Now it was time to go find our room and see what it looks like. And we made it to our room. Here's first impressions. Honestly, very cozy, very clean. I loved the balcony view. The ship was beautifully minimal with those subtle neutral tones that say, you're gonna be sipping Riesling while staring at a cathedral in 45 minutes. And honestly, I'm down for that. Check this out. This is right behind us in our room, and there's literally a sliding door, so you can open it up and lean right over. And this is the Rhine River right here, which is what we're gonna be sailing on for this entire next 10 days pretty much, or 8 days I guess. Yeah, this is our room. It's pretty spacious enough for a cruise ship, and it's a very, very small cruise ship. It's more like a river boat, so I think it's going to be a very calm trip and not very, I don't know, turbulent like a ocean cruise would be. So I think that's going to be really neat. And everyone was very welcoming getting right onto the ship. They gave us these like cool towels that smelled like lemon, and everyone was very welcoming. I think we are the youngest people here by probably like 20 plus years, so it'll be a very interesting trip. and I'm excited to take you through the rest of the boat, and we're gonna explore that right now. From the view of the ship, you could already see the river stretching ahead. The river is very calm and glassy, and I'm so excited to enjoy this view for the next 8 days. As we continued exploring the ship, we went to the Viking Lounge. This is where we'll get to sit inside and soak up the views. I'm looking forward to seeing all the little villages that surround the river. It was very peaceful, scenic, and felt like we were about to drift straight into a Pinterest board titled European Autumn Aesthetic, and I was very much on board with that. Our first official stop on the cruise is actually touring through Germany's Black Forest region, and let me just say, it's giving dark fairy tale energy in the best way possible. And to top it off, the weather that day was cloudy and rainy, but honestly, I was so here for it because it fit the aesthetic so much. We boarded a scenic coach ride where we saw rolling hills and historic farmhouses that then ended up winding through the very dense, very mysterious woods that looked like it might contain a few enchanted creatures, or at least a suspiciously friendly talking fox. The trees were tall, the roads were windy, and the vibes were immaculate. And then we arrived to the main event, a charming little village known for having the world's largest cuckoo clock. The world's largest cuckoo clock is right behind me, and I thought my hometown had the largest cuckoo clock. They claim to have it. Apparently my hometown has the world's largest, but they actually had the world's largest in the 70s, and they broke the record in the 90s for building the actual world's largest cuckoo clock, which is crazy. We just saw it go off a minute ago. We got here at exactly 10 o'clock and the cuckoo clock went off. It goes off every half hour and every hour, which is so cool. And these little people up here, they're wood carvings that they're known for in the Black Forest, Germany area, and that's exactly where we are right now, and it's just a super cool thing to see. Something about this place really felt familiar. Well, this is the area that my ancestors are from, and how ironic it is that my hometown claims to have the world's largest cuckoo clock. So I've got to say there's a lot of similarities about this region. So we took in some of the views a little while longer, and then headed inside to see something really cool. Now we're going to watch a cuckoo clock demonstration of how they actually make them here in Germany. That's right, we stepped into a shop full of cuckoo clocks, wood carvings, and nutcrackers, which felt like stepping into a museum curated by the ghost of Christmas past. Some of these clocks were incredibly intricate. They also had some other traditional German gifts, and we got to see a live demonstration of someone making a cuckoo clock. It was very interesting, and how many times can you say that you were in the Black Forest region watching someone make a cuckoo clock? I also admired all of their nutcrackers, which were super cool. I actually collect nutcrackers myself, so I really wanted to get one of these, but unfortunately they were very expensive. They had some really cute German ones that I was a huge fan of. Maybe someday I'll add one to my collection. They also had the cutest little intricate sets. You will not even believe how tiny these actually are. I still couldn't believe how detailed these cuckoo clocks really were. I never really thought much about cuckoo clocks before this, but I left with a new appreciation of them. And next up, it was time to try one of the most famous desserts in the Black Forest region, traditional Black Forest cake. We stopped at a cafe where they served a slice as big as my head. It was layered with rich chocolate, cream, and cherries, and honestly, it was delicious. Next up on our river journey was the picturesque town of Breisach, Germany, which honestly felt like the place that storybook characters go to retire. Perched on a hill with a big cathedral watching over it, Breisach has such a charming energy around it, with all of the colorful houses, cobblestone streets, and the vineyards that surround it. And with the help of a local, we found a hidden path that leads to the best views of the city. To get here, we walked up an old staircase through a vineyard. Once we got to the top, it offered amazing views of the cathedral and of the entire village below. And it was such a beautiful day while we were here. And fun fact, this is technically one of the sunniest spots in Germany. I'm not sure why, but I thought that was interesting. And as you can see, once we got to the top, we had panoramic views of the entire area. There was also nobody up here. I feel like it was such a hidden gem, and I was so excited that that local showed us the spot. We just made it to the top of this vineyard that we found. A local came up to us and told us this secret passage that we could get to if we kept walking down the street. We climbed up these stairs, and around us is this whole vineyard, and there's this old piece of castle right here, and in the distance you can see a big panoramic view of a beautiful chapel that looks like a castle, and in the distance you can see a panoramic view of Switzerland, Germany, and France all right here. It was so incredible walking up here and being able to see 3 countries at once. Last bit of steps to get to the top, and then we get to see the view. Here it is. Ooh. What is this? It's like a weird obelisk statue that has some really old writing on it. I'm not sure on the date of that. But this is the view. Wow. That is amazing.
Would you look at that?
Okay. That is the best view. This view was absolutely incredible, and I was so glad that we climbed all those stairs to come up here and see it. I honestly can't even imagine that people actually live here. It just feels like it's straight out of a medieval fantasy book, and I personally think that this offered the best views of the chapel. It was honestly so incredible. That was an amazing view. I am so glad that the local guy recommended that, because we would have not known about it, and I think it was even better than going up to the cathedral itself. And now on our way to the next stop, we actually saw another Statue of Liberty. So fun fact, there are multiple that exist. After leaving, we crossed into France and arrived in what can only be described as a medieval fever dream, the town of Colmar. And when we got here, we were not expecting this. There was an actual carnival going on at the moment. There was confetti all over the streets and in people's hair. And what was really interesting is that there were a lot of US movies as themes for these floats. I don't even think our tour guide was expecting this, because in order to get to the old town that we wanted to see, we had to cross through the actual parade. And what was crazy is they were playing like rave music the entire time. But we finally made it to the picturesque village, and it was so beautiful. Every building is colorful, timber framed, and slightly crooked in the way that screams historic but whimsical. It really did feel like the setting of Beauty and the Beast. And now we had to cross through the parade again, and there was some interesting things going on. That was a little scary, but luckily we made it through. And now we got to see more historic buildings, and we passed by a bakery and they gave us free macaroons. And these were honestly the best macaroons I've ever had. There were so many cute little shops and some unexpected things. There was a dog sitting like a human at a table at a cafe. Colmar, France was definitely a 10 out of 10 for cozy vibes, and the carnival was definitely an interesting experience to see. After our tour of the town, we got to see some more of the carnival. The music was definitely a vibe and completely different from parades that we have in the US. And fun fact, Colmar also has a little section called Little Venice that even has a canal and is super charming. We are at a massive cathedral, and this thing is huge. I can't even fathom how they made this. Look at this. And now for our next stop, Strasbourg, France. A city that somehow manages to be both very French and very German. And the main attraction here is the Gothic skyscraper, Strasbourg Cathedral. This is actually crazy. This cathedral is over 1,000 years old. It's covered in intricate carvings and is so tall it kind of makes your neck hurt while just trying to admire it. We also had the chance to go inside of this cathedral, and I was completely blown away by the architecture and how beautiful it was inside. It's made of pink sandstone, which gives it the sort of fairy tale but make it slightly haunted aesthetic. If you travel to this area, I highly recommend stopping in that town. And now for some of the views along the river. This is what we got to see outside of our window. And picture this, you're sitting on the top deck of the ship wrapped in a blanket and gliding past castles on cliffs, tiny vineyards, and towns that look like someone just paused time in the 1600s. I've always wondered what it's like to go inside of a castle, so now for our next stop, we went in one of the best preserved castles along the Rhine River, the Marsburg Castle. Now this place is the real deal. No fairy tale frills, no modern makeovers, just stone walls, steep staircases, and serious medieval vibes. There was even this old stone pathway leading to the entrance of the castle, and it's the only castle along the Rhine River that was never destroyed. A lot of the other castles that you'll see along the Rhine River have pieces destroyed, or they're not in use anymore, or they've had makeovers, which means everything here is from that time period. And to start, they even had actual cannons. They were still lined up looking over the Rhine River, and there was old cannonballs here as well. And look at the views that the cannon overlooked right over the Rhine River. I could definitely tell that this place was actually legit.
He said that these can shoot across the river the entire way.
Before we even entered into the castle, we were on the edges within the castle walls where there are gardens that they used during the medieval times. And the views from this castle were absolutely incredible. It's so weird to think that at one point somebody actually lived here. And they also had this interesting herb garden full of toxic plants that people in the Middle Ages would use for medicinal purposes. The garden literally translated to witches and magic plants, where they basically used to make poison. In the castle, we walked through the old wine cellar, kitchen, and some other interesting rooms. They even had this old tool dated from 1767 that was used in the kitchen. And we even saw a medieval bedroom where the bed was actually very tiny. And fun fact, apparently the family that lived here was very short, so some of these doors are super small. We even saw a medieval bathroom, which was really interesting. And as you can see, the door locks from the outside because sometimes burglars would come through the bathroom. That's right, they would literally climb up the toilet pipes to come through the toilet to enter into the castle. There was a lot of very interesting things in this castle. There were a lot of original tapestries and old books, paintings, and things like that. And the castle even had its own chapel where the entire ceiling was painted. You can still see how beautiful it would have been, but a lot of the paint is very faded now. And if you do not like tiny staircases or are claustrophobic, I would not recommend this part, where we climbed through an old winding stone staircase. The walls were so close together and it was such a steep, weird, windy staircase. So that was definitely an interesting experience. There was even a mystery staircase that was off limits that I would have loved to explore. And then we got to see a lot of medieval weapons, armor, and other things like that. They had some very intense looking weapons. And there were rooms filled with old armor and creepy mannequins. These mannequins represented the armor of the knights over different time periods. There was also a really creepy torture room, and they had a blacksmith room that we got to explore. Overall, this medieval castle was very fascinating. Our final big stop before the cruise ended was Cologne, Germany. And first I stopped by this really cool store to grab a new pair of shoes. This was basically my souvenir for the trip, and right in the middle of town is the Cologne Cathedral, and it is massive. Like, you could spot it from the ship, massive. I have honestly never seen anything like this in person, and we even got to explore inside, and it was insanely big. I cannot even fathom how anyone has built something like this. I love old architecture, and this place was absolutely stunning. Apparently it took over 600 years to build it, so it's the longest I'll finish it later energy I've ever seen. And yet somehow it's perfectly symmetrical and impossibly detailed. Every inch is covered in carvings, gargoyles, and statues. The stained glass windows are ridiculously tall and colorful. There's also the Shrine of the Three Kings, which is said to hold the remains of actual biblical wise men, just ancient relics casually hanging out behind golden arches, not the McDonald's kind. And walking through here felt peaceful yet overwhelming all at once. It's the kind of place that reminds you how small you are, but in a good cinematic way. Cologne Cathedral is definitely one of those places you want to cross off your bucket list. And we even got a private tour to go up to the top of Cologne Cathedral, where we climbed over 300 stairs up tiny spiral staircases. I wish I could show you videos at the top, but we were not allowed to take videos. But I do have some photos from the top, and it was such an incredible view. If you ever get a chance to go to the top, I highly recommend it. Well, you'll learn so much more about the history. And just like that, our trip has come to an end. We also saw the windmills in the Netherlands, but I forgot to get videos from that day. So make sure to subscribe for more vlogs like this, and thanks for watching.